Now, what we have heard a little bit more on is the pros, the Pro and the Pro Max slash Ultra. So run us through what is semi-confirmed slash what are we expecting?
So what we think we know now is that the Pro Max is going to be gone. And the phone itself is basically going to be the same 6.7-inch screen, big battery, stuff like that. But it's going to be renamed to the Ultra, which does make sense. We've got Apple Watch Ultra. It seems like there's a nice opening here for Apple to rename some of their higher end devices with bigger screens to Ultra. So we could see iPad Ultra, we could see MacBook Ultra, but iPhone Ultra certainly makes sense. So you'd have basically the Pro Max with the big screen, big battery life, and then maybe some exclusive features like the watch has. So maybe we get an action button. Maybe we get what makes more sense is like some kind of camera upgrade, like a 10x optical zoom. The process is probably going to be the same. Maybe get some other like special features. I don't know how they're going to roll this out, but the Ultra should have a couple of exclusive features just to that phone that you can't get in the other 15 Pro. But both Pro phones, we're talking new processor, we're talking still the same dynamic island, same screen, same always on screen. I'm trying to think what else we've heard in terms of features. There's been like some like features that have like been in the rumor mill forever. Astrophotography mode, 8K
Right.
video.
A lot of software.
We have no idea if it's going to come. And then the only other big hardware difference on these phones that could, well, two, I should say, that could come to all phones or maybe a couple of phones. One is the switch from Lightning to USB-C. So yay for that. And also Apple's going to remove the buttons or like the actual tactile buttons
Right.
and go to software-based buttons. So sort of like the iPhone 7, you'd have like a button that looks like a button, but when the phone's on, it clicks like normal and, you wouldn't be any wiser. But when the phone is off and there's no power, it's just like a solid piece of material, stainless steel, aluminum, titanium, whatever it is. I'm not sure what benefit that gives you. Maybe on the Ultra, you'd have like a pressure sensitive button that could
That's
like
what I was
do
gonna
different
say.
things, like an action button. That would make sense. But that's sort of what we're hearing right now.
Yeah, I was thinking that, and maybe it's just more waterproof for the Ultra. Like, why you need to dive with your iPhone, I don't know, but maybe they have some like instead of astrophotography, they have deep sea photography, so you could like take your phone with you down. That sounds dumb, but it also sounds like something Apple would do. I think that the titanium will be safe for the Ultra. Obviously, the Apple Watch Ultra is titanium, which makes sense, but I think that's another differentiator that they could easily do. Stainless steel on the regular Pro, but the Ultra gets that titanium, which is just another reason why you might want it. It's going to look a little different. It's going to be that brushed material instead of the shiny stainless. I don't know. I think that will happen. USB-C is interesting. Okay, we're expecting that to come. That's great. Do you think both the Pro and this Ultra will get, well, let me rephrase that. Is it possible that these will get Thunderbolt support, or is it something that only the Ultra would get, or none of them are going to get it? Because I guess USB-C sounds awesome, but one of the main complaints people have about Lightning is that it's so slow. And it would be nice if Apple just said, you know what, we've heard your complaints. We're going as fast as possible.
I feel like there's three ways they could do this. Well, a couple of ways. One is, I think they have until 2024, 2025 to comply. Like they have like 2 years,
Right.
I think, to comply. So we could see just a totally lightning focused iPhone 15 next year, then see USB-C with the 16. That is a possibility. What does make sense is if we see, and I think kind of to your point about Thunderbolt, maybe next year we see the Pros get Thunderbolt USB-C ports. That would finally answer the question of why is my connection to my computer so slow? That would fix it. And you'd have USB-C. They start with the Pros, and then with the 16, they roll it out to all phones. So they're in compliance. They sort of have 1 year where the USB-C gets to sort of be the golden exclusive feature on the higher end phones. That makes a lot of sense. Or they could just give us straight USB-C across all phones and then maybe make it just USB-C with no Thunderbolt, or reserve Thunderbolt for the Pros, but that just gets a little confusing. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see sort of a split next year of Lightning on the regulars and then Thunderbolt USB-C on the Pros.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And yeah, and I think whenever USB-C comes to the lower end phones, it's not going to have Thunderbolt, even if the top end ones do. We can see that from the iPads. The iPad Pro has Thunderbolt, the iPad Air doesn't. So that would make a lot of sense. Here's another question. We've talked about this before, but I guess now that we're getting maybe in this more ultra category, what are the chances we see something like an M2 chip in this phone? I know it's dumb. There's no reason for it. maybe it's even just a marketing term, but what is the chances of something like that? I'm just thinking because of Thunderbolt support, it'd make it easier, right?
I think that would be cool, but the fact that Apple can't even figure out what to do with that on the iPad Pro, I'd have be very skeptical as to why it'd be on the phone. And also, I don't know what the correlation is between that and battery life, but that would be the one thing too, is, like what impact would you have? Imagine like stuff. In a perfect world, if I could like run like some kind of Mac OS on this and like have like it plug in and it does all that, like,
yeah,
I'm sure, technically speaking, Apple's got to be able to put an M2 in this phone, right? They've got to be able to
definitely.
like, I'm sure they've tested putting their own M series chips in these phones, but I haven't had any speed issues or bottlenecks, so I don't even know what benefit that would give you. Sort of the same thing on the iPad Pro, but they still do it. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the iPad line evolves. And if that software can finally one day take advantage of that processor, then maybe that'll trickle down to the iPhone. But I think next year probably we're going to see a 17 in the Pros, whatever benefits that gives us.
Yep, that makes sense. And I mean, just because Thunderbolt is in the M2 now doesn't mean they couldn't put that in an A series chip either. Like, it's still an ARM series chip, right? So, or ARM architecture, so they could easily do it. It's probably pretty simple to transfer that over. Simple in Apple terms, not my terms. I'm trying to think what else we're expecting. I mean, what are the chances that the Ultra, whatever this thing is the only one that gets the major camera differences? Do you think that's
I
at
think
least especially with the telephoto?
A good shot that the telephoto is just with the Ultra. And then I'm maybe some other camera stuff too. I'm not sure what else they do, but as we've seen before, it used to be, you'd get the Plus model, but it's so weird how they've redone the names now, where Plus used to be the most expensive iPhone, and now it's one of the lower end phones. Anyways, think back to like the 6 Plus and the 7 Plus and even the 8 Plus. If you wanted the optical zoom, you had to go with the bigger phone, and that's what you got. And then with the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max, they gave you like a slightly larger sensor on the larger phone. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a larger sensor and then periscope zoom lens just on the Ultra. That makes the most sense to me. And whether it's technically a limitation or not, could they do it on the regular Pro? They probably could, but I could totally see them just reserving that for the Ultra, just to give it that extra. If you want the Ultra camera and the Ultra versatility, you've got to go with the biggest, most expensive iPhone. Totally can see that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Just another differentiated feature, another reason to call it a different name. Otherwise, why not just call it the Plus at that point? Or not the Plus, the Max, because this is the same kind of idea as what we have now.